Hi everyone and welcome to episode 97 of the Layton Fitness Podcast. In this specific podcast we'll be discussing why you're more than likely to lose more weight within that first week than any other week within the fat loss phase, and this is because of a couple of reasons. And the reason why I think this is so important to understand is I think a lot of people get discouraged after that first week. They see the amount of weight they've lost within that first week, and then because the following weeks they don't quite lose as much weight as they did from that first week, they get discouraged and then they give up. And I think I just want to put this into context so you understand why this happens and why it's actually perfectly normal for you to lose more weight within that first week and then not as much weight within the weeks ahead. And hopefully this will therefore mean you can stick to the plan over a longer period of time. You could adhere to everything without getting discouraged. So first, it's just critical to realize within that first week within the fat loss phase, we're more than likely going to lose quite a lot of glycogen and water. So basically glycogen is stored glucose within the muscle cells and liver, and the result of this is because we need to create the energy deficit need for fat loss, more than likely we'll be having less carbohydrates in addition to more training. And we're therefore in that first we're going to lose some glycogen as well as body fat. In addition to that, we're also going to lose some water as well. So glycogen pulls in water into the muscle cells as well, and that's why more than likely, if you've ever done any type of diet before, you'll lose quite a bit of weight within that first week. The other reason for this is the longer we're in a fat loss phase, fat loss typically will slow, and this is mainly just because your metabolic rate starts to slow. You've already lost quite a bit of body weight previously. However, that first week of the fat loss phase, it's relatively straightforward to lose quite a lot of weight. In addition to that, we're obviously losing glycogen and water, and that's why it's really critical that you almost try and put that weight to one side. Instead of thinking, okay, I've lost 5 pounds in the first week, I want to try and do that every single week. It's just not going to happen. And that's why it's really critical that you focus on that 0.5 to 1% weight loss target per week. Now, the reason why it's critical that you focus on a percentage weight loss target is quite obviously a 20 stone individual is going to lose body weight at a much higher rate than, say, for example, a 10 stone individual. Therefore, focusing on a percentage weight loss is a much more effective way to objectively gauge whether you're progressing well or not, because a lot of people like to compare, especially with females, they typically like to compare their weight loss with their friends. So if you have a friend that's much heavier than you are, it's not objective and fair to compare your weight loss if you're 10 stone compared to your friend who's 16 or 17 stone. Quite obviously they're going to lose more weight per week than you are. However, that's why it's critical to focus on that percentage weight loss target. Another thing to consider, this may not seem a huge amount, and the reason for this is we need to again remember that secondary objective within the fat loss phase. We have two main objectives within the fat loss phase. The first is obviously trying to lose as much body fat as possible, and the second is trying to maintain as much muscle mass as possible. So therefore, if you were to be too aggressive the energy deficit, too little calories, too much cardio in addition to the weight training, you're going to lose a lot of muscle mass as well, and that's not our goal. So by focusing on 0.5 to 1% weight loss target is slow enough to allow us to maintain as much muscle mass within the fat loss phase. And so as such, that should be your main focus throughout each and individual week within the fat loss phase. And once again, as soon as you reach a plateau, which is normal within the fat loss phase, that's your cue to either drop calories and or increase expenditure from cardio to continue creating the energy deficit need for fat loss, with weight training as the foundation of your routine to maintain as much muscle mass as possible. So that's what you should be focusing on, the percentage weight loss target, as opposed to thinking, yes, I've lost 6 pounds in the first week, I'm going to do that every single week. It's just not going to happen. So be pleased with yourself that you've seen a good amount of weight loss within the first week. However, put that to one side and then just focus on that 0.5 to 1% weight loss target per week, because otherwise you'll get discouraged, because the next week you might lose 2 or 1 pounds, and even though that's still good progress, your assumption is that it's not as good as that first week. But remember, it's because of that glycogen, water loss, and also it's easier to lose body fat at the start of the fat loss phase as opposed to the end of a fat loss phase when you've already lost a decent amount of weight. Metabolic rate is slowed down to a certain degree as well. So hopefully that's been useful. I think this is such a key thing to remember, because the key principle I'm trying to get across is just don't get discouraged if your progress appears to slow after that first week. It really it really is perfectly normal. So hopefully that's been useful. Thank you very much for listening. If you're still yet to download my free book, How to Set Up a Nutrition Plan, if you go to James Layton, Layton fitness.co.uk, you'll see a tab at the top of the page and you can download that immediately. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll look forward to speaking to you next week.